What's up, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know who this is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. The podcast, Rolling Stone magazine says, initiates profound discussions with rock and metal artists, allowing fans to discover the creative workflow of their favorite musicians and understand the factors that make the band succeed or fall from fame. We are also sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom needs. Get $100 off your entire bill. Use code CPPod at darkfusionsystems.com. Look at the podcast below. Feature presentation time. We've got Jimmy and Timmy from Dose of Adolescence on the podcast today. Yep, they've released 2 albums prior in 2001 and 2009, and now it's 2024, and they're releasing a brand new album called Zircon Ave, which will be out on November 15th. We talk about what they've been up to, why they took that time off, and why it was the best possible thing they could have done. We also take a look at Warped Tour and the importance of bands standing out and just trying new things, whether it's with their music or with their presentation. And we even take a look at the singles for Zircon Ave as well and get you ready for the rest of the album. You guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. If you loved music in the early and even later 2000s as well, especially something that had more of a pop punk flair, a punk rock flair, hip hop infusion, literally anything you could imagine, you probably heard of this band, but you might not have listened to them very consistently in the past couple of years. But it can all change right now because they got a brand new album called Zircon Ave coming out on November 15th. So let's dive into it with them. Let's have a blast and let's see what the band's been up to. So please welcome Jimmy and Timmy from Dose of Adolescence to the podcast. So gentlemen, welcome to Chord Progression Podcast.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being on, guys. How's everything going in your world right now? I mean, brand new album, the first one since 2009, set to come out end of 2024. Like, how's it feeling with brand new music ready to be released to the entire world?
I think I would have to say that we're both just incredibly grateful to do something again that we love and we're so passionate about. So really grateful. And I think we're also learning a lot because the landscape of music and the way music is distributed to the world, the way people do promotional things, everything has really changed. So we're learning and we're really grateful, I guess. Yeah.
I would say definitely would have to be learning because going back to when your last album released back in 2009, the whole music landscape was completely different. It was something where iTunes and downloading MP3s was still the way to go when it came to delivering music for people to consume music. Streaming services like Spotify were not even fully a thing yet. I don't think Spotify really became a thing until like 2010. But as that built up, then we had the pandemic hit. Everything changed upside down the music industry. Many more bands are going independent. So record labels are having to constantly change. So over the last 15 years, like there has been a mass amount of change you guys are already dealing with. And it's a whole brand new game. It's a whole brand new thing. So why not enjoy the ride?
Yeah, no, I think it's been incredible. And for me, I love taking a situation, not that it's a problem, but taking a situation and just kind of learning to crack the code in a sense. So I love to see how things were, how things are, and what I've learned over time to where I can basically crack the code to make it work for us now.
So essentially, you're using history in order to figure out exactly what has happened, how things have transpired, and how can you use that to your advantage to make sure you're in the best position going forward for the overall, direction of the music, direction of the band, and this new album as well.
100%. 100%.
So one thing I was looking at when I was trying to do as much research as I could on the band was I was looking and it kind of was talking about, the different things you guys have done and with the 2 albums. But then it was like Warped Tour 2010, and then I couldn't really find anything after that. So what's been the history of not only you guys, but the band overall since that point in time?
We did do a little East Coast run on Warped Tour in 2013. We also went out and worked on the last final Warped Tour in 2018, and we did get to play a handful of shows on that one as well. And then we did a fall tour with a band from Southern California as well. That's like it that we've done basically tour-wise since.
Okay, that makes sense. But like, what about like you guys specifically when it comes to the overall band as well? Because if that's just for touring to like, again, we're covering 15 years here. Like there's got to be something that you guys were doing in that time that not only made you guys do other things as well with that time, but now coming back and starting up a brand new album.
We were raised by a single father, and our father had gotten older. He was in his 40s when we were born. So we made the decision. Ultimately, he needed full-time care. So it was really hard to try and take full-time care of him, put the time and effort into the band. We had we had to make a hard choice, right?
Yeah.
We had those things going on, and for us, ultimately, we made the choice to lay down music and take full-time care of our dad. We did that for approximately 6 to 7 years that we were taking full-time care of him. And then he passed away just about 3 years ago. September 29th was the 3-year anniversary. So we laid music down. We took care of our dad, which we both 100%, it was the right choice. And after he passed, my brother and I just both kept coming back to each other and being like, hey, man, I don't know what it is, but something about music is still tugging at me. And we both kind of just kept having those conversations. And it ultimately led us to me having a conversation with Brian Welch, who owns the label that we're signed to. You know, Brian and I were friends previously, and our friendship never really had anything to do with music. You know, he knew we had played music at some point, but we were friends. And when my brother and I kept feeling this tug, I finally went to him just to ask him for advice. And I was like, hey, man, if you were in my position, what would you do? And that quickly turned into, hey, do you want to go meet with my manager? Do you want to go meet with my manager? And then a few minutes later, hey, we're about to start a record label. Would you want to put out a record on our record label? And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, really? Like, we worked for so many years, and those are a lot of times the goals that people have, is like getting signed to a record label and these things. And we had those goals, but they never happened. And then it literally happens within a matter of minutes, you know? So yeah, that's kind of the gist of where we were when we were not playing music.
See, now that makes a lot of sense from where I'm coming from a fan's perspective, because when it comes time to, you know, something's going on with your parents and you want to make sure that you're going to be there for them, because family is something that is going to always be there for you, but you never know how much time you're going to have with those people. You never know if it's going to be something where you have another 10 years with them, another year, or if they're going to be gone the next day. So being able to take care of your dad full time during that time period and spend those 7 years making sure that not only was he able to continue to have the best life possible at that point in time, but you were able to continue to keep up that strong family dynamic. Overall, that's going to be something that if you were going out and playing music and you had not done that, maybe you'd be a little bit further in your career, but you would still be maybe not feeling like you did the right thing, or maybe always wondering like, or regretting like, hey, I wish I would have spent more time with my dad. How many people have we heard make music that is about wanting to spend more time with their family, or wishing they would have spent more time with their family in those important moments? Because even though they're out on the road, even though they're gaining success in that aspect, they lost out on something that was truly within them, that truly meant the most to them. And now you can't get that back. You guys took a step back to be able to make sure you had those moments. Now going back into music, you're not regretting any of those decisions. I can clearly tell that it was the right decision, like you said, but you could hear it in your voice and see it on your guys' faces that being there to take full care of your dad full time was the best decision you could have made.
Yep. It's literally one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given, to have that time. And I never thought about that until you said it. All the people that talk about like wishing they had the time, you know, like we don't have to have any regrets or wonders. You know, we did what we did. And I think I can speak for both of us. We're both completely happy with the decision we made.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that too, because I even think about like certain members of my family where there's certain regrets that I have where it's like I decided not to go to certain events or go to do certain things, or I went to go do other activities when I could have spent time with them, and then I lost out on that time. I never got to see them again. Now that's something that I have to deal with. Of course, it was somewhere like I was constantly out and I missed everything, but I even think about times where, you know, other members of my family missed certain aspects of our family's lives, and then they never had to see these people ever again. They missed out on something super big, and it really does hit you, and it absolutely makes sense. And it's incredible the fact that, you know, when it comes to now music, you guys can take a listen to those bands and those songs that talk about wanting more time and really think about, okay, what's it like to be on the other side when you actually did put that time in, and maybe your professional goals or your professional aspirations took a step back during that time. You're on the other side of it, so you can give that perspective too. And clearly it was the right perspective from your standpoint. Like I have to commend you for those.
Thank you. Yeah. No, it wasn't an easy choice to make in the moment. And it definitely took going through the process and then being on this side of it to look at it and go, we really made the right choice.
I'll say that's just a piece of authenticity right there. And something that not only can other musicians learn from, but other professionals can learn from, but everybody can learn from as well. It's hard to make those decisions in the moment because your aspirations and your goals have you pushing towards something. And you always want to get, especially if you're very passionate about it. But when you have, family that maybe you want to do certain things over there and you're trying to figure out what to do, what's best, you might pick what seems like the easiest choice because, your family still loves you. They'll still be there, but you have to make sure you're taking care of this now. Well, what happens when it's flipped in reality? What if it's actually flipped? Then that's by the time you get to the end of it, and that's where the regret comes in. So, man, I can't speak enough highly about you guys in terms of making that decision for yourselves and coming through on it with the most positive outlook beyond it, where you had the most amount of time with your dad, and now you're able to make music once again. You're on Brian's record label, and it's just all happening once again with those professional aspects and professional goals hitting even right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is we're in the best position we've ever been in. We have a team around us. We've never had a team like this before, so it's really, really a blessing. It's incredible.
It really is. And now, again, Zircon Ave, the brand new album coming back out on November 15th. You can listen to, at the point of recording this, 2 singles, Get Back Up and Lean Back, which are out right now. But let's go into the creation of this album, creation of these songs as well. So jumping back into music now that it's, the landscape has completely changed when you last released an album. When it came to the music making process and how you worked with your own creative process, how did that become a thing starting over once again after, 10, 15 years?
I think the first thing that we had to do was really go back and revisit some old relationships, some of them that had been broken, and repair those relationships, because for me, I felt like it was the right way to go through the process. So I think the first thing, we went back and repaired some relationships, one mainly with our producer. And as we mended those relationships, I really feel like we saw the creative process be the most simple and life-giving and produce the most fruit out of anything we've ever done. When we went back into the studio, it was like with old friends, and things just kind of like came out very easily. So yeah, did I answer your question? I don't know if I answered your question.
The 2 songs that are out right now, the 2 singles that we've already released, we literally wrote and recorded both of those in the span of like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So
it was very, very, they came out very easy, and I think we came out with some of the best stuff we've ever done.
Yeah.
I would say you answered the question better than I even asked it, because I think everyone would be expecting, okay, what was the actual creative process like? Like, how did you make these songs? But where you were going from it, where going and repairing a bunch of those relationships that you had in the past to try and get this going again, bring back some of those friendships, bring back some of those working relationships to create something once again and try and create that magic, but do it in a way that is going to be even more fulfilling for you going forward. That's something that's even cooler, just because it's been so long since, we got new music from Dose of Adolescence. You guys spent so much time focusing on other important things in life besides music, and then getting back into it, you found a way to get that inspiration and get that absolute energy going once again. But you got it also through building up and building back relationships that you have had in the past to get that creative workflow and that positivity of that creative workflow going. That is something that I was not expecting, but again, better answer to a question that I didn't even ask.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad.
Oh, I'm very glad you answered it that way. Just it's an incredible piece, and it had to feel absolutely euphoric just working in the studio and just having all of these songs just start flying out of you, all these different ideas working together, because you had so many people around you that you had worked with in the past, and now those relationships were built back up and strong once again.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. 100%. And that's why I believe that's why we got the quality music that we got, is because of doing things the right way, Like there's always a right and a wrong way to do everything. And I just knew when we started making music, or when the conversation was happening about starting to make music and who we would get back into the studio with, for me, it was just like, hey, we started this sound with this guy. This is the only right way to do it. And let's just swallow our pride, have some hard conversations, and really just start going about this the right way.
Man, that's even cooler than I even thought. Again, just because you have to have those hard conversations. You have to go and actually face some of those things in the past where a lot of people today, no matter where you are, whether it's the music industry, in the, corporate America, or just in life in general with family, friends, former acquaintances, if you want to start to build back up certain relationships, those hard conversations are going to have to be had. Those tougher moments are going to have to be had where you maybe have to swallow some pride, maybe where you have to, actually humble yourself, take a look in the mirror and realize that, hey, everything that happened wasn't this other person's fault. It may have been my fault too. So let's take a step back. Let's actually figure this out. And if we want to continue to work with these people or build these relationships back up, we have to take those moments and make those happen.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Always a two-way street.
It always is. One thing I always like to say too is if I'm in something or it's like and something becomes an issue, it's never going to be 100% on one person because there's always two people or groups of people involved. Are the scales different in terms of who's more at fault? Of course, but it's never 100% one person's fault because then it shows that other person didn't do literally did whatever they could to prevent that from happening. It happened anyway. And you make decisions and you make choices that put yourself closer to certain positions for, relationships to deteriorate, for family dynamics to deteriorate, for music to just not go as well. And even though it might not be you the one that caused it, maybe there were little pieces of things that you did that led to that moment.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just the crazy thing to think about. And you guys literally did that to, hey, we're going to see where we were at fault for this stuff. We're going to have those hard conversations so that we can potentially rebuild those relationships. And at the very worst, if we're not going to make music with these people, hey, at least, we tried something and we made the effort to try and repair those. But beyond that, looks like you guys had the better outcome of being able to work with all these people once again and create music once again.
Yep. Yeah. Because I think too, when we're willing to take personal responsibility for situations, like I didn't go to our producer and be like, hey, this is what upset me or this and that. It was, hey, I just want to take personal responsibility for my part of the situation. It's like you just almost melt the situation and everybody's just like, oh my gosh, yes, let's do this again. Let's do this. So I think personal responsibility is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So
owning your actions will always be beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you own your actions, what happens? Then you don't have the what ifs hanging over you. You're like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, it happened. I'm moving on from it. Or it's a part of me, but those actions may have led to something greater. And it just took me actually doing those things and seeing the repercussions of it to turn around and do something different. Yeah. There's always possibility of looking at it that way too.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I am curious about too is when I was listening through the singles as well, Ken, Get Back Up and Lean Back. When you listen to those singles, of course, it has this mix of punk rock, this pop punk mix, and this hip hop mix in there as well. And we're seeing a lot more of this genre blending and bending happen within the music industry today. The one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that, you guys, again, have released an album since 2009, come back and making music that has all these influences that you guys were so used to from, when you were primarily doing music back in the 2000s. But it still sounds so completely fresh for 2024 and beyond as well. Like it still has that same feel as Dose of Adolescence, but is even more and has this continued feel of this is something that is, we know, but it's also something that's brand new at the exact same time. So when it came putting all these influences together and all these songs, just how did you make that whole melding pot work for you?
You want me to answer?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started kind of experimenting with this genre back in, I would say 2012, I think.
I know we originally did a remix of one of the last things we did in 2012. We put a single out every month and we did a remix. It was like this style.
That was the first time.
Yeah.
And then we were at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. We ran into some guys that that made hip hop that were connected to our producer. I really connected with these guys. When I saw them perform, I was like, I've never seen hip hop performers perform like that. So we just decided that we were going to connect with these guys once we all got back to California. We end up connecting with them. We do a collaboration song with these guys and kind of just put the collaboration song on the back burner. And at that time, we had a relationship with Kevin Lyman from Warped Tour, and we periodically would go to him for advice and like, kind of, Kevin, we don't know what to do. You know, what would you do? Kind of the same thing I did with Brian. You know, I've been very fortunate to have these people that I can go to for advice. And we had this meeting with Kevin. We tell him everything that we're doing, and then we show him this song, which is on this record. We show him this song and we say, oh, like, we kind of also have this collaboration song. And he listens to the song, and mind you, when we started this band, we had two goals. One was to play a place called the Glass House in Pomona, California, which is like a 2,000 cap room. So for us back then, that was like, we played a 2,000 cap room. We made it. We wanted to play Glass House, and we wanted to play Warped Tour. So Warped Tour to me is like, it's everything.
Yeah.
We show Kevin Lyman this collaboration song, and he comes back and he goes, I've listened to 400 records in the last 4 months, all claiming to be something different. This is different. He goes, if I had any advice for you guys right now, it would be explore this avenue. Keep writing in this genre and see what happens. And for me, like, everything else goes out the window. You're kidding. Like, the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin Lyman just said I would experiment with this. That's what we're doing. So it started there. We went back to our producer. We basically shared what happened at the meeting, and we all decided, okay, let's go. We don't want to have any genre walls. We want to pull from wherever and really just make the best product that we can. And I give so much credit to our producer, Rich Zonheiser, for the melting of everything, because the man's a literal genius. He knows my brother and I through and through. So when we sit down in the studio, it really is just kind of like a magical thing, because we know each other very well as human beings and creatively, and it just works really well, dude.
Yeah.
That is even more incredible of a story than I thought it could be, especially when you're talking with Kevin Lyman from Warped Tour. And back in that time period, how, like you said, how many bands were giving him records? Like, it was like 100 a month, 400 in 4 months,
yeah,
all claiming to be different. And he ended up listening to your guys' song and picked out yours as, this is actually different. That's coming from somebody who had their finger on the pulse of everything going on in the music scene at that time.
Yeah.
And there's so many bands that claim to be different, yes. But when you get that kind of endorsement, especially if you're nervous to try something new or try something different, that gives you the confidence to go for it, to really give it a shot. Where I've told a lot of bands too, if you think you have something different, you think you want to try something, go for it, give it a shot. Because when it comes to, like, you know, all the hair metal bands that we had back in the 80s, we heard the same style over and over and over again. If you're going to try and recreate that, you're just going to be like a potential cheap imitation of something else. So you always want to try and figure out exactly what excites you and just go for it. You found something that excited you, and you got the endorsement from somebody huge to say continue to do it and see where it leads. Then it gets everybody else excited. It gets everybody else just even more energized to work on this stuff. It allows that creative process to flow freely, because you have this piece from somebody that is allowing the restrictions in your brain to no longer be a thing.
Yeah. No, it was for me, it was everything. So like have Kevin Lyman say that about one of our songs and then continue to be like encouraging to us. It doesn't get any better than that, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't. I can't get any better than that. I couldn't think of it getting any better than that. And then when you guys are continuing to make music on this, now again, even though we're going from 2012 to 2024, you're still able to continue to go down that avenue, and you still have that endorsement, Kevin Lyman, saying continue to explore this. And now you're showing where the exploration went on this brand new album.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. It's really exciting. And then, I mean, they just announced Warped Tour 2025, like, is a thing again. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what that ends up actually being like, because I don't think it's going to be the same thing as it was, where you're going to be able to get $40 tickets to see so many great bands in a traveling festival to your city every summer. Like, the economics are a little different now.
Yeah. And with Live Nation being a part of it, I'm sure the dynamics will be very different.
Yeah.
But hopefully some of the things that made Warped Tour great will still be present.
Sure
That's what I'm hoping for too. When you get, the fact there are so many bands that had a chance to actually show what they were capable of, where, people were able to come in and potentially see brand new bands, because there was never like a fully set schedule every single day. You had to look at the big giant blow up wall to figure out when your favorite band was playing and when. And typically it was always your favorite band was playing at the same time as your second favorite band. You had to make a choice, but it forced you to actually be able to see so many other bands and hear so many different sounds for you to just walk over to hear a little bit more and potentially find something that you were going to love that you were never going to find elsewhere. Of course, we have streaming and we have all these different playlists and everything. They're able to do that. But as the economics and the industry continue to change, it's still going to be something where you've got to find a way to get that music out into people's ears. And if you're going to have 5 different stages all going at the exact same time, people are going to walk from one to the next. And if they hear something they like, they're going to check it out at least for a little bit. And that's a chance for a band to not only make a longtime fan, but to make longtime fans all across the country if it's going to continue to be a traveling thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's why I have so much love and respect for Kevin Lyman, because for 25 straight years, Warped Tour gave artists that wouldn't normally have an opportunity to be in front of people. Warped Tour gave artists that opportunity. Like the fact of the time slots changing every day. They did that so that kids would show up early and they would stay late and they would be exposed to bands that they may never be exposed to, Yeah. So, I mean, just that. And then the fact of we were able to one summer for the entirety of Warped Tour, we were able to go to these meetups that were called EIY, which is basically DIY. So they were called Earn It Yourself. So we would go to these meetups that Kevin Lyman would be a part of every day for the summer of Warped Tour. And not only the love and respect that you have for him because of Warped Tour, we got to see him and his character and the way he was day to day and the way that he loved people and helped people. Like, that man has helped so many people's career.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many bands that really finally got a good going on Warped Tour, people that discovered them on Warped Tour, or even musicians that had done something well, maybe had split their separate ways, started something new, and had a chance to actually show what they were doing now to so many people at the same time. I still remember I was interviewing my friends in the band Avoid, and they just showed up one day, just hanging out, passing out, their album or their songs to everybody that were walking out of there. And one day someone didn't show up, so they were there. They had all their stuff ready to go, and they're like, "Hey, do you guys want to play this slot?" So they just went up and did it, and they did it for like a whole entire weekend. And it's like if a band drops off some of a festival now, it's so structured and everything where it's like that spot just stays opened up, especially if it's on short notice. Understandably so with how schedules work, but if you have a chance to show somebody off, like, hey, this band is here, they're ready to go. They might not be on the bill, but let's put them on anyway because that's a slot to fill and you never know who's going to go see them. You never know what people are going to check out. It gives potential for so many new bands to continue to work and continue to get that much needed exposure to an audience that is absolutely fever pitched about that style of music.
Yes. And we have that same story. I mean, we were out selling. That's how we got connected to Warped Tour and Kevin Lyman. We followed Warped Tour one year. We followed it the whole summer and just sold CDs. And the next year, I literally just walked up to Kevin in the parking lot and I was like, hey, in years past, I've seen bands playing out front to the line in the morning because everyone gets there early, right? Because you don't know when your favorite band is going to play. So there's sometimes, dude, like 1,000, 2,000 people lined up before the gates open. And I walked up to Kevin and I was just like, hey, normally there's a band playing in front of the line, but you don't have one. I go, why? And he goes, no one. I don't know if he said no.
They didn't show up.
They didn't show up. Yeah. And I was like, well, can we do it? And he said, sure. If you guys can stay out of the way and do your thing, go for it. So we literally got to play for the line every single day that summer because of Kevin giving us an opportunity, you know? And that's kind of how we got involved with the EIY meetups, because we were playing the line. We'd go to the EIY meetups every day, and we would just try and learn about the music business from one of the great people in the music business. And that's kind of how all this started, an opportunity just like that.
Just to show like how much he cares and how amazing he was to like small and up and coming bands. We actually, that year that we were the line band, we were in Maryland, I believe, and the cops came out to stop us all. And he came out personally and said, no, they're okay. They have permission to be doing this. Let us play.
Yeah.
We thought, we were like, oh crap, we're done today. Like, there's no way these guys aren't going to let us keep playing. And he personally himself came out on his bike and like was like, no, they're good to go. He's just a rad dude.
One hell of a rad dude. And I got to love his first name too, because him and I share the same first name. So hell yeah. Yes. But one other thing I love about that whole entire story too is over time, you know, the question is, does that still work? Do bands going out there and just performing at a place where they just have a chance to actually show people their music, does stuff like that work still? Of course, now with the internet being a much bigger thing. Ever heard of a band called Silly Goose? They've literally done that exact same idea, showing up at different festivals, playing outside. Now when it comes to like DWP festivals, they don't get to play outside. They're not playing outside anymore to people because they're booked for the festival pretty consistently now because people know them. They want to go see them. Hell, even for Lollapalooza this year, they would just show up every night at a random gas station around Grant Park in Chicago and just rip a show until they got shut down. Like, simple as that. And it's stuff like that where you're able to take a chance and just show people your music. Of course, Warped Tour was great for it because there was a little bit more of a structured environment for that. But now with potentially coming back, it could have that same aspect. Even with Live Nation a part of it, a little bit more of a commercial side of things, maybe a little bit more structured, but it still has the potential for that. However, bands like can still have that same idea that you had of just showing up places, maybe trying something different, just simply asking. You never know what might happen. Maybe you're going to a festival at a venue like here in Milwaukee, go to Milwaukee Metal Fest, and there's plenty of bands playing. But what happens if you could just play yourself out, like play outside as a small band in the courtyard when people are just hanging out there in between sets? Hey, I get to go check out your stuff. I get to go hear what you have going on. Maybe just ask the venue or the promoters to see if you can do it. What's the worst thing they can say? No? Well, at least you know, but you won't. But it's a definite no if you don't try.
Exactly. And I mean, if they say no, you're still in the same position.
Yeah.
So
you're still in the same position. It's like the only way to go is up. The worst you can do is be exactly where you started. And if you don't do anything, you're going to be exactly where you started. So why not try something? Because you're already at the floor. Only way to go is up.
Yep. 100%.
And it's the same thing with trying a new idea with a new sound or like new ideas for sounds and just like what you want to create. If you're stuck somewhere and you want to try something new, just try it. Why not? Because if you don't make the decision, you might just stay exactly where you are. So try something new because you could just jump up and find something that you absolutely love. And people might absolutely love it. Like Kevin Lyman. You never know who's going to end up hearing it and just take a liking to it.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. You just got to go for it. You can't. Yeah. I mean, there are certain things now that I understand about the music business and situations like that and doing those types of things. But also, like, you got to try and kick down doors yourself.
Yeah, it's even think about it too, like even past in the music industry with different record labels and just how important they were for music distribution and getting bands out there. It was like they had to open the doors for you, but you were basically tied to them opening those doors. And if you weren't there, it's like you had to find a way to break them down yourselves. Now, just with the way the internet is and people vying for attention all over the place, you have to find other ways to break down those doors and get through them yourselves without maybe so much help because there's so much other noise out there. There is more accessibility to the music, but there's so much more noise that you have to find your way through. And there are bands that are doing different things. Of course, you've seen a lot of bands do different things on social media that are hitting off. But again, there's still something to be said about going out there and just doing something that's so punk rock that it just absolutely works and just catches people's attention because it's brash, because it's upfront, but at the same time, because it's just so damn cool and so damn like just creative. People thrive on that. So what you guys did with Warped Tour, what Silly Goose has done, what other bands are trying to do, that's the beauty of music. That's the beauty of where you're going to find some of your most favorite bands upcoming, because they're not going to be like every other band you're seeing.
Yep. Yeah, there's something different about them. It takes a different type of human to be willing to push the limit like that.
Yeah, and if you have it, if you have the want, if you have the will to do it, push the limit. Just push it. I'm like, okay, now I should push myself like against this and try and go the opposite direction, but I'm not that good at, visual differences. I never went to film school, so that's on me. But going into the singles as well, I mean, because you got Get Back Up on there, Lean Back on there. I was listening to them, and it's like, you got Lean Back, it has a little bit more of that hip-hop flavor to it. Get Back Up has a little bit more of that kind of hip-hop flavor to it, but it has a lot more of that punk rock flow to it. And I got to say, between the two, for me personally, I like them both, but Get Back Up really has something going for it. So you releasing the single was good choice. Good choice, my friends.
Awesome. Thank you.
So when it came to writing that one, how did the writing process look like for that, and where did the inspiration come from for Get Back Up?
Honestly, that one we kind of wanted to go back towards our old sound a little bit more. And our producer actually flied out to Nashville to do some work, and we wrote with him for that week while he was here. And we were all just kind of hanging out, messing around. I came up with a little run on guitar for the chorus, and then we doctored it and tweaked it up, and he started putting the beat together. We all started writing lyrics, came up with melody, and then we flew out to California and just finished the actual, like, cleaning it up and recording it properly. We just kind of wanted to go back to, like, I guess pay homage to, like, our old punk rock roots, but still mix the new sound and style in with it.
Well, you can clearly tell, especially in the song, when you get to the chorus, it definitely has more of that punk rock root to it, with a little bit more of that pop punk, a little bit of flavor in there. But when you bring in more of the new, some of that like hip hop influence, especially in the verses, it can be much more felt. But as you go from that transition from verse to chorus, in my mind, it does go from something that's a little more produced, something that's a little bit more raw. But at the same time, it's how the overall speed works and how the overall sounds connect with each other from transition from one point to the next that allow that to stand out and allow it to be something that is something beautiful that we see with bands that love to blend different genres together. I mean, we're seeing bands like, especially in music, Bring Me the Horizon is a perfect example. Falling in Reverse, another great example of bands that are just taking all these different ideas, trying them out, putting them together in the best possible fashion, and look where they are. I mean, they can headline their own festivals if they want to.
Yeah.
Because it's new, it's different, it's creative, but it's also something that evokes a lot of great emotion for people that love the heavier stuff, but also love a little bit more of that hip-hop style as well. It hits on so many different aspects where whatever style you like, you're going to have a piece of the song that you're going to absolutely feel and connect to a little bit more. But when you get to the other portion of the song that you might not from a sonic standpoint, you're going to still feel the continuity in them that allows you to really see where the whole entire song is coming from, feel it, and really get into the entire thing and enjoy the sound as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing is, for a long time, like, genre lines have been kind of like shifting, I guess, to where they're really not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's pop, there's rock, there's this, but so many people listen to so many different things. You can't even ask someone anymore. Like, I remember when we were growing up, you asked someone, like, what type of music do you listen to? And it was a pretty distinct, like, genre that they listened to. And now, like, everyone listens to everything from, like, DJs to hip hop to rock. So blending it is just kind of like, it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That does make sense too. And the other thing I always love to look at too is it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier when you thought about, taking a look at the history of the music industry, seeing how things have gone in order to make sure you put yourself in the best position going forward, because there's a classic quote, those who don't learn about history are damned to repeat it. Yeah. That's something that my high school history teacher, was also my homeroom teacher, he had that up on the wall out of his classroom, so I saw that every day, and I never forgot it. But it also speaks to this, too. Think about all the bands that have absolutely gone forward and not only created something new, but have gone and made it absolutely huge. Look at, even go back to the 50s with Elvis, the 60s with the Beatles, 70s with bands like Led Zeppelin, and then the disco era, 80s where you started getting, more of you even had the punk rock stuff in the 70s, 80s, you had thrash metal come in, hair metal come in, and 90s with grunge, and then new metal, especially with thinking about Linkin Park in the 2000s. The pop punk era comes in. Now where we're going to now, it's so many bands really connected and blew up because they tried something new and they blended their influences in together and they didn't stick within a very specific or rigid stance. And as time has gone on and more bands have done that continuously, now that's where the genre lines. It's really hard to find a certain band in a certain genre because no one sticks to a specific formula anymore. The only way you can put a band in a genre anymore is like if they invented it. So think about thrash metal. You got the big four there. Who else goes in there besides really them? No, you don't really think about anybody as thrash metal except for the big four, basically. I know there are more out there, but when you bring it up, your mind's either going to Slayer, your mind is going to Metallica, Megadeth, or Anthrax. One of the four. Yeah. But it's because they created something new for themselves and tried it. And so many other bands are starting to do that now and really see that where you can listen, like for me, I can listen to like Slaughter to Prevail. I can listen to Knock Loose. I can listen to Rise Against. I can listen to bands like Ice Nine Kills and then immediately go and listen to like Irish music because I think it's great. But it's like, that's the eclectic taste that you got to love. And you're embodying it in your music because you feel the same way.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily new either. I mean, when you were talking about what you were just talking about, it automatically made me think of like even Aerosmith, how they were super popular in the 70s, kind of fell off, and then their career got like revitalized because they did a song with Run DMC.
Gosh,
and that song was great. Like, I don't know. I think people are just into anything that they can relate to for the most part.
I think that's an important thing too, and I love that you said this earlier. I forget what you said it in reference to, but you said authenticity. And literally Dose of Adolescence, that's what that means, is authenticity. So for us, like just being authentic and how Timmy said, things that people can relate to, because that's what people are going to gravitate to is like real life stuff.
That's always been my biggest goal with the songs. Like our first album we ever did, I was like 18 years old. It's a straight up pop punk record. I wrote a song about missing hanging out with my friends because I got like a real job finally. I was 18. I had to get a job. I was working graveyard shifts. Long story short, he like messaged us somewhere, probably MySpace back then, about how it really helped him with a breakup. And I'm like, wow, that has nothing to do with what I wrote that about, but that's amazing because that's what it meant to you. So that's what music has always been for us. We just want to write, like he was just saying, from our heart, real stuff. That's what the band name always meant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you wrote a song about that too, because even now I think about it too, where there's stuff that I'm doing, even though I'm closer to 30 than I am to 18, even though I'm very, very close to that point. But I still feel the same way too, where it's like, I remember always hanging out with my friends. I remember doing a lot of great things. A couple days before we recorded this, the previous weekend, I was in Kentucky for Louder Than Life Fest, hanging out with my friends, having a blast. And it's like, I've only been back a couple of days as the recording of this episode. And I miss the hell out of those guys, even though two of them I can go and see anytime I want. But we have to make sure our schedule aligned. It's not the same like we were when we were 17 years old and it was summertime and we saw each other every day and did the absolute stupidest stuff possible. There are certain things that we did that maybe we should have gotten arrested for that were also maybe my idea, but that's a maybe. That's an allegedly type thing. Yes. However, it speaks to truth where it's people are going to gravitate to what they relate to what they can connect to. And that's the beauty of music where you can, even if you're talking about something that is completely different, like just missing your friends and someone takes it from a relationship standpoint and maybe missing the person they really care about the most, it does hit. It does make sense because the music and the sounds that you're creating on this, even as you blend so many different genres together, is going to create an emotion within people that's going to allow them to relate to the topics that you're talking about. Like thinking about Get Back Up. I mean, the whole song had me thinking about taking all the shots that life has to send our way. And no matter what happens, you keep getting up and you keep moving because life isn't fair. It's not going to treat you like it's the perfect thing and give you everything on a silver platter. So when those negative things happen, you got to keep driving, get back up. It keeps that anthemic feel too with that message to really put it further across because that's really where it comes through from an authentic standpoint, at least when my mind was in listening to the song and seeing where it was taking my whole being, just enjoying it. I'm like, man, I feel like if I get knocked down, I can get back up and still be positive about it. Like, this ain't gonna stop me.
That's what we wrote that about.
Yeah, if you're still living and breathing, you can get back up.
We wrote it about basically how music looked like it was dead for us, but we got back up.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, and even you brought up Aerosmith too. Is like after the 70s, Aerosmith seemed like they're going down, and then they kept trying something. They tried something new, and that's where the whole entire hip hop and rock can actually coexist. Because let's be honest, the Rum DMC collaboration with Walk This Way is better than the original. At least in my mind, it is.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Literally, as he started to say it, I could hear it in my head, and I was like, gosh, dude, that song is still just a smash.
Yep.
Yeah, because again, how many people from all different walks of life could relate to it when you start hearing the intro to it, and then right before they're about to get into the actual riff, you just hear the record scratch, and it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then you hear Run DMC go through the verses, but how they do it too, it's like, yeah, this is like what Aerosmith did. The whole pattern's very similar, but now so many more people can relate to the song because it has that element in there. It just amplified everything to the umpteenth degree, and it brought again that authenticity of so many different places into the music for people to relate to, which again, when you guys were doing right and Get Back Up, I thought you did the exact same thing in terms of relatability and authenticity.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, dude.
And even Lean Back had the exact same thing too when it comes to kicking in and relating to it, because especially when you look at the lyrics, it has more of a specific lyricism from a storytelling standpoint in the verses. But again, if you're able to do that in a storytelling mode, people are able to relate to it and then begin to put themselves in there. Because I was looking at the song, I'm like, they're getting specific on this, but it kind of takes looks at, the lows in life, the highs in life, because we're all going to have highs and lows overall, right?
100%.
And we go through those, and in the end, we need to make sure that those lows don't define us forever. They can shape us and lead us to great things, but if we let those lows continue to define our lives going forward, we never break that cycle that puts us down in the end. And it could be an impactful thing to our kids, to our grandkids. So when life puts you down, you can't let those things define you. Of course, they happen. You can be accepting of those things, but how do you use them to get back to those, triumphs, to get back to those highs in life?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think everything that happens to us, it's either a lesson or a blessing. And both are. A lesson is a blessing to me. So, I think it's just really about like growth and being grateful.
Yeah, and that's why I even liked in Lean Back too, with the verses having more of that upfront and more specific lyricism behind it, but then more of that hip hop flow to it being much more brash, much more in your face with it, because when you have those lows are going to be directly in your face. It's much more relatable, but then having more of that hip hop, more anthemic chorus mashing into it as well, it helps you amp up and get beyond those lows. It doesn't let you sit in those. So again, when it comes to the musical side of things, you're absolutely hitting on all the emotions and you're leading us to something better in an authentic way versus just, okay, this is what's going on. Here's a story. That's it. No. You're blending so many different ideas together to create an experience, not just tell a story or not just try and say something.
I love that, dude.
Thank you.
So if there's a press release, maybe put that in there.
Seriously. Yeah, no, the way that you're describing the songs, like, I love it. It's the best description I've heard of them, like anyone outside of our camp or team. So it's very humbling to hear that. So thank you.
You're welcome, but also, yes! Okay, and I'm done celebrating on that one. But with the album coming out on November 15th, we're all ready for it. We're all excited for it. What else does the future hold for Dose of Adolescence?
We are going to spend the rest of this year working the record release process, and in 2025 we will start to tour again and playing shows, and ultimately, hopefully at the end of 2025, put out another record. I mean, that's the goal. The goal, and the reason that we do this is we love to be creative. We love music. We love to tell stories. So yeah, I mean, 2025, some touring and hopefully a new record.
Oh, I hope so too, because another new record would be great, but also I love to hear you guys are going to be getting back on the road. You're planning on touring once again. My one request for that is, can you come to a place that's within at least 2 hours of me so I can go see a show live?
100%. 100%.
When I always say 100 miles as well, just because I can get anywhere within 2 hours. 100 miles seems like a pretty good gap, but that also includes Chicago as well in there, which I'm like, usually everyone goes there, so I'm going to include that piece of it. So make it easier, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to the third largest city in America for that, especially because that place always pops off for music like this.
Yeah,
Yes,
it does.
Yes. So you have our word. We will absolutely come within that distance.
Yeah, but if you can come to good old Milwaukee and make it even easier on me,
right
I'd really
Milwaukee.
like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always did love Milwaukee when we went there on Warped Tour. It was a great city.
Yeah.
Well, come on back. We're waiting for you.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. Well, guys, I got one more question before we wrap this up. It's something that I love to ask every band, and also it's in the spirit of Warped Tour as well. I've been doing this for over a year, asking this question. It allows us to get to know more great new music. It allows you to help us get to know more of the music you love. So between the two of you, can you guys name me 3 bands or artists that you would love to see more people get into right now?
I think. I don't know if I haven't really been into like the new music stuff.
It could be older stuff you just want more people to check out.
Let me look at who I have that I've looked up. Okay. I mean, that's a band that I've loved and I feel like has inspired us a ton. A band called Mayday Parade. I'm really into Wage War right now.
Ooh, good call.
I'm also, actually, you know what? I met this guy because, like I said before we started the podcast, we serve tables for a living. He's an artist out of Nashville. His name is Zach John King. He's a country artist, and I met him because I served him and his parents. But this dude, phenomenal songwriter. I would love to see people start getting into this guy. And he's growing, so it's happening, but I would love to see it take off for him.
If we could do 4, I got 1 too to give.
Give me it. We'll break the rules. Give me it.
Shout out. His original ska band that he was in called the Goodwin Club is making a comeback right now too.
Yep.
If you're into ska, they're great.
All right, I'm gonna send it to my best friend and my brother because they go on huge ska kicks every now and again, and it's always fun. So send them that way.
We'll just put out a new song.
And also, even though I'm not a big country fan myself, I always love hearing what people are listening to. Even if it's a country artist, I'm like, I'm still gonna make sure I clip that up and make sure I put it out there, because even if you're not a big fan of a certain genre, there's always gonna be something that you can find within there, because maybe someone just creates a song that hits you in a certain way. Because let's be honest, I'm not a big fan of country, but if you're gonna play Friends in Low Places, I'm gonna get down to it.
Yeah. No, and to be completely honest, I have just started to get to where I'll even listen to country stuff. But hey, a well-written song is a well-written song.
Yeah. Anything with talent, dude. Yeah. And you can tell that they put some work into it.
Yep.
Well said on both your ends. Well, Jimmy and Timmy, I want to thank you guys for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate taking the time. I'm going to end this with 3 specific things. So first things first, this is Dose of Adolescence. Their brand new record, Zircon Ave, is coming out on November 15th, and they said they might be releasing another one in 2025. They're going to be touring in 2025, so be sure to keep up on the know with all of it by going to the description of the podcast. It'll say Find Dose of Adolescence online. Links and labels for everything are down there for social media, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, where you can go find them for potential tours. We can go get some merch. I'll find it all for you. I'll be Google on this one. You don't have to search it up. I got you. Just go down there, click a link. You're good to go. Make sure you do it. I'm watching you. Do it. Now it's time for number 2. Whenever I'm guesting the podcast, when I drive the podcast, I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And I would love to continue to support the band in the future. So here is what we do. I'm going to make sure this happens. I'm going to say when, though. When implies this will happen. We just don't have a day or time yet. But when I can see you perform live for the first time, and hopefully it's in this great city of Milwaukee. And if it's in Chicago, that's fine too. But when I can see you perform live for the first time, I will come and find you guys. I will come and say hi to you guys. But the promise really is, first round's on me.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
I'm going to hold you to it.
Oh, please do. It's always a great time. And you never know. There's times where I've had people like, we've been on the podcast twice, so can you up it? And I'm like, okay, I'll bring you like a 12-pack and just show up with it. It's always funny when that happens. But we'll make it happen. Now it's time for number 3, gentlemen. I cannot end this by saying goodbye because I made you guys a promise. I want to continue to support the band in the future. Beyond that, though, I don't want this to be your only time on the podcast. I want you guys to continue to make new music. And when there's more new stuff coming out, I want you right back here to talk about it. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Love it.
Always.
Therefore, this cannot be goodbye. My friends, This is I'll see you later.
See ya. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Woo! Well, folks, this is my interview with Jimmy and Timmy from the band Dose of Adolescence. Now let's go to Kevin's final thoughts. So, where do I want to go with this? Let's talk about Warped Tour and what the band saw on Warped Tour and how history all plays a part of it. Remember when I said those who don't learn from history are damned to repeat it? That's a famous quote. Can't remember who said it, but my history teacher in high school always had it on the wall in his classroom. Shout out to Mr. Kangas for that one. However, what we're looking at is take a look at what Dose of Adolescence learned on Warped Tour and the history of Warped Tour. They learned about the importance of making sure that you try something for yourself, that you try something new, but also you're willing to put yourself out there and just take risks. Try something different with your music, even when it comes to the presentation of it. See what they did. They ended up going and trying to get as many people to listen to their music by just showing people their music outside. And then when people were waiting in line, they took a chance to perform for people that were in front of the line, and they made it happen so that even Kevin Lyman was all in for it. Then you see what other bands have done too. Like, does this still work? There's a band called Silly Goose that has made this work and has shown this can happen. Now, are you going to be able to do the same thing that Silly Goose did exactly? Not necessarily, but can you take that idea and figure out what you can do with it? Absolutely. So definitely take a look at it from there and that perspective, but this is all about authenticity. You got to do this stuff because you want to do it. You got to try this stuff because you believe in it. And even when it comes to the sound as well, they came up with Zircon Ave. You know, they tried these different things with the sound. They got the thumbs up from Kevin Lyman, like, hey, this is different. Go and give it a shot. They have that ability to do these fun things because they don't have any restrictions built up in their brain from that endorsement. Now, you might not get an endorsement. You're probably not getting an endorsement like that. But I'm still going to say it. If you want to try something new with your music, give it a shot. Go for it. You want to try something new with the presentation of it? You want to find a different way to get your music out there? Give it a shot. Go for it, because if you're not doing anything or whatever you're doing has you stuck at the bottom, the worst thing you can do is stay there and stay at the bottom. If you try something new, you might go up, you might stay stagnant, but at least you know you're one step closer to actually hitting on it. I want to thank Jimmy and Timmy for being on the podcast today. Please go to the description of the podcast below where it says Find Dose Adolescence online, link symbols for everything. You're going to be there. Please also hit that subscribe button here on the Chord Progression Podcast right down here on YouTube. You can also hit the follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Be sure to like the episodes, help pushes the algorithm. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Links here for the podcast below. Thank you guys. And that's me for me, everybody. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of these episodes with a big, healthy, and hearty see ya.